brain theory.
You've spent your whole life chasing something. A better job, a perfect partner. That feeling you had once when things felt right. You chase it in ambition, in lust, in late night scrolling through the glow of 1,000 artificial stars. You chase it because you think one day you'll catch it. But Lacan would laugh, not out of cruelty, but recognition. He'd tell you something that at first sounds like a curse. You will never get what you want. And then he'd lean closer with that French psychoanalytic chill and whisper, "That's not a tragedy. That's freedom. You think this is about the thing you want, but it isn't. It's about what wanting does to you. And what happens when you finally understand that the thing you're really after was never real to begin with. The real object of desire is missing. Lacan called it l'objet patia, the object cause of desire. The missing piece you believe will complete you. But here's the catch. It doesn't exist. You think you're chasing a person, a status, a goal, but you're not. You're chasing a fantasy, a ghost, your mind dressed up in silk and fire. And every time you get closer, the object shifts, morphs, slips just out of reach. Like a dream you can't quite remember. Think of a child pointing at the moon. The dog doesn't look at the moon. It looks at the finger. We do the same thing with our desire. We think the object is the moon, but it's never the moon. It's something we projected into the sky. You want love? Maybe. But what if what you really want is the feeling of being wanted? You want success? Sure. But maybe what you crave is the end of shame. The object of your desire is not the thing. It's what the thing seems to promise. Completion, relief, wholeness. And Lacan says, you can't get it. Not because you're a failure, but because you were never meant to. You want the feeling of wanting, not the thing itself. Let me tell you a story. A man falls in love with a woman he sees at a train station. He never speaks to her, never learns her name, but she haunts him. For years, he imagines her as his perfect soulmate, tender, mysterious, filled with meaning. Then one day, by chance, he meets her again. They talk. He asks her out, and she says yes. But on the second date, something feels wrong. She's just normal. Not bad, not unkind, just real, human, not the goddess from his dreams. And suddenly he loses all interest. Why? Because he wasn't in love with her. He was in love with his own desire, with the projection, the image, the intoxication of potential. We do this constantly. You think you want the relationship, but what you crave is the electricity of uncertainty. You think you want the job, but it's the fantasy of who you'd become in that job that drives you. It's not about having, it's about yearning. And that means getting what you want is often the most disappointing thing of all. Satisfaction kills the fantasy. There's a reason forbidden love burns brighter. There's a reason some people self-sabotage the moment things go well. There's a reason the dream job becomes a cage the moment you sit at the desk, because fulfillment ends the story. Desire, Lacan said, is sustained by lack, the feeling of almost, the ache that something is missing just over the next hill. And so we build entire identities around that ache. We become the seeker, the climber, the romantic, the rebel. We love the idea of becoming. But when you finally get the thing, the partner, the paycheck, the recognition, something strange happens. You feel nothing. Or worse, grief, as if a part of you just died. That's not dysfunction. That's the structure of desire itself. Because now the fantasy is gone. The projection is broken. And you're left staring at something ordinary, something human, something real. It's why the happily ever after is never filmed. Because nothing kills desire like arrival. Why you're addicted to the chase. Your brain rewards pursuit. Dopamine doesn't spike when you get the reward. It spikes during anticipation. You're built to chase, to strive, to hunger. And so the game continues. You finish one goal and immediately start another. You fall in love, get comfortable, then feel the itch. The quiet voice that says, "This isn't it." And Lacan would tell you, that's not a glitch. That's your software. Desire is not a straight line from lack to fulfillment. It's a loop, a Mobius strip, a labyrinth with no exit. Because the moment you think you've escaped, the walls reappear. You are not failing at life. You're following its logic perfectly. But here's the twist. The moment you become conscious of the loop, you can begin to play with it, rather than be played by it. You can ask, what do I actually want? And watch your answer dissolve in real time. That is not despair. That is awakening. The mirror stage. Why you're always split. To understand your craving and its eternal disappointment. Lacan takes us back to the beginning. Picture a baby, barely able to crawl, seeing its reflection for the first time. In that moment, the child sees something whole, something unified, the image in the mirror, strong, complete, but it doesn't feel like that on the inside. Inside, the child is chaos, hunger, confusion, fragmentation. So what does it do? It identifies with the image, clings to the illusion of coherence. The mirror becomes a fantasy of who the child could be. It becomes the first I. But that first I is already split between how you feel and how you seem, between your inner truth and your outer image, between the real and the imagined. And that split never closes. You grow up thinking that someday the gap will disappear, that love or money or enlightenment will finally make you whole, that if you try hard enough, the person you are will become the person you imagine. But that day never comes, because the mirror isn't broken. It never reflected the real you. Here's where the horror turns into grace. You think if you'll never get what you want, you'll suffer forever. But Lacan flips it. If you stop believing the fantasy can save you, then you're finally free to live. The cage isn't your desire. The cage is believing that your desire will be fulfilled. Let me tell you about Anna. She was obsessed with the idea of the one. Her life felt incomplete without that perfect love story. She projected all her dreams into a man who said all the right things, but left her anxious, exhausted, hollow. She clung harder, because if he didn't work out, then the whole fantasy would collapse. And one day, it did. He left. She shattered. But then something strange happened. Nothing bad happened. She still woke up, still had coffee, still walked through the world. But without the pressure of being completed, she started to notice things. The small pleasures, the moments of absurd joy, the irony in her old patterns. She didn't stop desiring, she just stopped expecting the desire to rescue her. That's what Lacan offers. Not a cure for your hunger, but a new relationship to it. You stop asking desire to make you whole, and instead, you let it become your dance partner. So what now? You won't get what you want, but maybe that's not a punishment. Maybe that's the door opening. Because the moment you stop trying to possess the object, the person, the role, the feeling, you can finally experience life without the filter of illusion. You stop chasing the image in the mirror, and instead, you look at what's behind the glass. Desire still burns. But now, it's not a desperate scream. It's a hum, a rhythm, a pulse that keeps you moving, not because you believe in the destination, but because the movement itself is alive. It's jazz, not a march. You flirt with goals. You laugh at your projections. You become intimate with your own contradictions, because you'll never get what you want. And that's what makes your wanting beautiful. So here's the question Lacan leaves you with. If you stopped needing the fantasy to come true, what kind of life could you actually live? Comment below with, "I see the mirror now." Let's see who's ready to stop chasing ghosts and start dancing with them.